Are we on?
Yes.
Good. All right, so this week we're going to kind of go over the same outline that we went over last week. I'm going to run through it again quickly, kind of the step-by-step, what we're expecting to see in a standard type listing meeting, go through the various steps, talk about some of the objections, and we're going to go around the room and call on some people, and then at the end we'll do some role play where Mark can yell at me. So does anybody remember? Well, I'll just go through it here at the beginning. So, right, we get to the appointment, right, and most of the appointments that you guys are going on are sort of set up to be, in all likelihood, listing appointments, right? So there's a cash possibility. They're expecting a cash offer, but from the information that we have, we think it's going to be a listing. Not always correct on that, but most of the time it will be, if anything. So show up, knock on the door, wait for them to answer, go in, give them a card, say hi, start talking to them, and then do a walk through the house, right? And so during the walk through the house, kind of main objectives are Markle.
Build rapport.
Build rapport.
And you're not, I guess, assessing motivation.
Sure, yeah. Building rapport, talking to them about their house, starting a conversation. Yeah. Demonstrating expertise a little bit. You know, you can talk about aspects of the house, right? So the walkthrough, you go room by room. You know, you're going to talk about. You want to try and get the conversation going by talking about whatever it is that you want to talk about with them, whatever they want to talk about their lamps, and then anything that you see with the house that may be an issue, you can ask them about, kind of demonstrate the, maybe you've done this before. It's not your, first appointment. And then you're going to kind of get to finish the tour of the house, and you'll be kind of back where you started, in the living area, kitchen, wherever that may be. And then Tara, what are you going to say?
Well, you take the reluctant buyer positioning, first of all.
Well, no, so we just finished the tour. What are you going to say?
Oh, just finished the tour.
Just finished the tour. We're going to say what? What's the one line? What do you want to do now with them?
Two options.
You want to sit down, right?
Right.
Okay, so you finish the tour. Say, hey, can we sit down and talk chat for a few minutes, right? And you want to sit at the table, sit at the couch, but you want to get them seated because you're going to have a conversation with them that's going to ideally last more than a few minutes. So you don't want them to be standing outside, like Tara said, worst case scenario, there's nowhere to sit and you have to go to a Starbucks. But yeah, so you sit down, hey, can we talk about, let me give you my thoughts on the house, talk about numbers a little bit, etc. So sit down, and then what?
Well, then
you said
the reluctant buyer positioning first, or just the two options?
You want to give them, you want to talk to, well, the reluctant buyer positioning is a broader, right? That's more of a theme, but so you want to go into the kind of the first thing you're talking about is the two options, right? So that's kind of how you're going to kick the conversation off. It's always a little bit, it can be a little bit awkward there. It's like when you're walking through the house, everybody's cool with that. They kind of expect that you're talking, you're working through, you finish. Now it's sort of like, now what? So you sit down. Hey, so let's chat. You start asking them questions, so tell me what's got you thinking about selling the house, whatever, and then you want to get into the two options piece, right? So, hey, you always have a couple options when you're selling a house. You can do it the traditional way through an agent, put it on the market, as you know, or you can work with someone like myself who's an investor. And there's kind of pros and cons to each, right? If you go on the market, you're going to get more money, a few more hurdles to get past. It takes a little bit longer. You're going to have showings. You have to kind of get the house show ready. Versus doing it with an investor, you're going to get less money, but the upside is that it's going to be more convenient. You don't have to clear everything out. It's going to be faster, etc. Right? Pros and cons to each. So then you're going to kind of give them that setup, and then you want to be kind of interspersing questions in there, right? Like you're trying to assess motivation, like you talked about. You want to figure out how motivated they are, what they're really after. Do they want all the money? Do they want something convenient? Are they looking for something sort of in between? Like how flexible are they? So, you know, why are you moving? Where are you going? You know, what's most important to you? Do you want, you know, do you have a price in mind? You know, do you have to be out by a certain date? How are you going to move all your things? You know, figuring out, like, not just taking their word for it, like, oh, I want to get as much as possible. You know, exploring it and figuring out all of their motivations, right? Like, how are they going to get from point A to point B, and make them talk about it so they can think it through themselves on the spot. Like, how am I going to pack up all this stuff? What am I going to do with all this furniture? How am I going to get it all to the next spot, to help them kind of realize what it is that they want, and help you realize what it is that they want, right? So, Berta, what happens after the two options?
I gauge their readiness to make a decision. One of the things I asked them.
On the script.
I don't have the script.
Excellent. So then, what are you going to do? You're going to talk. You want to start talking about pricing, right? A little bit. You want to kind of get a sense. You want to start tempering their expectations around price. We do that by first looking at Oracle.
Look at the comps.
Exactly. Right. So you say, hey, you know, you're starting to assess motivation, figure out kind of what their plan is, like Phil said, and then you want to start kind of getting a feel for the numbers, right, where their head is at, because most of the time, you know, people are going to have some idea in mind as to what they should be getting to the property, and they are either, you know, off by, you know, they're too high, or they haven't considered like commissions, closing costs, you know, they don't know enough about it to think about it in an educated way. So you've got to start getting their mind right and getting them in, you know, to reality vis-a-vis price, right? So you're gonna, yes, Bruno.
What would be the benefit of going to the price, discussing price, prior to assessing their readiness to make a decision? You know what I mean? Like, if they haven't, you know, if one of the things you said I thought were very good was getting them to talk about how they intend to get from point A to point B. You know, just kind of really just painting their own picture of what they want to accomplish with the whole situation. How much sense does it make to visit the price if we haven't assessed their readiness through that exercise? You understand what I'm saying?
I do, and I think you're really thinking about it from a cash perspective there.
Yeah.
And I think that makes sense what you're saying. So you're gonna be assessing motivation, but on most of these appointments, you know, this is somebody who in theory is going to end up listing their house, right? And they, you know, if they're just like shopping around, they're not serious, then whatever.
Okay.
But
all right.
These are people who are, you know, they want to sell at some point in the foreseeable future, and they're probably going to do it with an agent. So you kind of have to, in order to advance the ball, you know, start.
I got you.
Kind of working.
So motivation isn't as much the priority for the listings as it is for the.
It's not, because if they're going to list it, then, you know, they're going to sell the house. Like, you're sort of at this point competing. You're not trying to like get them to sell it. You're sort of trying to convince them to sign up with you.
Okay.
Even though you're not selling them, right? So, in all of this, we're coming from the vantage point of.
I see.
Of what? How are we?
This is how we do it.
This is how we do it, and we're an investor. I'm not soliciting you yet, etc. Like, I'm educating you and showing you that I have expertise, and just educating you on the.
I got you. That makes sense.
Okay.
But also, you know, when you're doing the walkthrough of the house, you're finding stuff out about their motivation, and you're finding out where they're going to go, what the timeline is, you know, how they're going to get there. You know, you're asking all those questions when you're doing the two options. You're discussing that. You're continuing to ask questions about just their thoughts and their plans and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, you have a pretty good handle by the time you're showing comps, talking about pricing anyways, I would think, right?
Yeah, I think that's right. And you also are not going to fully, especially for listing, I don't think, be able to uncover their, you know, all their sort of motivations without discussing price, at least to some degree.
Okay.
So if they're going to sell their house, then you kind of have to
I wouldn't know. Okay,
deal with that.
got it.
Yeah. So going through comps, right? And so we talked about how to do that. You know, if you can do it on a computer, on a tablet, however you want to do it. And you've got a couple comps that you want to show a couple comps that are on the high end. I usually show two. We talked about this last time, right? Something that has been fully renovated, that is clearly in a different condition than their house, substantially different. And you're saying, you know, you can ask them what they think their house would sell for, blah blah blah, and then you say, here's what a house that's a little bit bigger, that's been fully renovated, sold for. You know, so this is a helpful comp for us. Obviously, you know, this is kind of the very top, right? Are you going to do a full renovation of your house? Oh, you're not. Okay, cool. Right, and so like, and then you show them another one like that, right? And here's this one. Everything's brand new. You got stainless stainless steel appliances. This is, you know, quartz countertops. Whatever, you know, you have to go through the pictures like we talked about, and it's sort of like the pictorial evidence is hard to argue with, right? It's like, so here's your house, right, and you have pink tile in the bathroom, and then this house is brand new. So like most people are going to kind of like get the picture, right? And then you can show them something that is closer to their house that's a little bit on the, you know, the lower end. Say here, you know, this is what we're, you know, this is a good comp that is pretty similar condition and size to your house, and this I think gives us, you know, at least one data point where we can, you know, where we've seen a house that's sold that's a lot like this house. So we, at the end of the day, anybody who's looking at houses is going to, they're going to look at what houses have sold for in this area that are similar, and that's going to be what people use to determine the value of a house. You know, and most people aren't going to argue with that, right? So you're helping get information out of them about price, what they want, and you're helping temper their expectations about what the house is worth. Yeah, kind of twofold, right?
It really helps to know before you go, though, because at least
know what?
To know kind of what kind of comps you're going to bring up
Sure.
ahead of time.
Absolutely.
Because I'm finding that some are easier to find than others.
Yep. Agree. Yeah, you don't want to be like sitting there not being able to find anything, or showing them comps that are not helpful for the cause. Yeah, that's true. And so, and you want to rely on the pictures. Let the pictures do the work. You don't have to persuade them. Just go through all the pictures with them, and they'll come to, you know, anybody who's even vaguely reasonable is going to come to the same conclusion. All right, so then, you know, you've done comps, and what's the next thing on the outline? Kind of next big topic that you can go into with them. Andrew?
Pricing.
Excellent work, Andrew.
Very nice.
Thank you.
Well done, Andrew. You're fired. So we talk about pricing, and then what are we trying to accomplish with pricing discussion, Marple?
I'd say to make sure that their views on what they should get for the house is realistic.
Right, and so you've started doing that with the comps, right? But what else are you trying to, so that's one thing, you want to continue this theme of getting them to understand a realistic price for their house, so that if and when you get them to list, you're listing at a price that the house will sell at, and everybody's going to be happy at the end of the day. That's definitely part of it. What else? What's the biggie? What are we always trying to do here?
Get them, making sure like they know that we're trying to get them for their property as possible, because it's
Educate them, right? We're
Showing
educating them
expertise.
and showing expertise, right?
Right. Remember, it's not that we're trying to get the most money possible for them when we sell their house, because we're not pitching that we're not trying to convince them that they should let us sell their house for them. Remember? Right, we're sharing our experience, our expertise still at this point. Like, here's what we think about when we're selling our houses that we renovate. Yeah.
So like in all the steps we've been through, right? Like the walkthrough, the two options, the comps, the pricing. You're trying to uncover their motivation, trying to learn about what the situation is, educate them, demonstrate expertise, right? So and get them sort of their mind right on pricing.
And you're also using the pricing thing, again, to hammer home that, like, you want to have it priced correctly to make sure that it sells, like, as quickly and for the best price possible. Pricing it too high is going to hurt your cost of getting the best price. So you showed the comps to sort of set their expectations about what it's, like, worth, and then you said even, like, within that range of what it's worth, you really want to price it at, like, towards the lower end of that, So you generate the bidding war and all that stuff that we talk about here in the pricing riff, right? Along with obviously showing that just our experience and expertise, and you're educating them about how pricing matters and what to think about when setting the price and all that stuff.
So you're, with the pricing, what's the first thing that should come out of your mouth when you transition to the pricing? So there are
the top
two really
critical.
critical things, right? With selling a house, you got marketing and pricing. And pricing is key because if it's not priced right, you know, that if it's overpriced, it's going to sit. And that is you're going to do yourself a disservice by having it sit on the market. So then you explain that, and then by saying, how do you set it up? You want to explain what it is that we do, what we do, right? So when we sell a house, we spend a lot of time figuring out what we should list it at because it's so important, and the consequences of overpricing are very real for us. Why is it different? Why is it so important for us as investors to price houses correctly and get the most money possible when we sell a house versus, let's say, a traditional agent when they're selling a house for somebody else?
Well, an extra $1,000 to us is a real $1,000, not a percentage of that.
Exactly. And
Right.
if we're selling 50 houses a year,
That adds up.
that's meaningful
Yeah.
versus an agent where, you know, like it resonates with people. So you can explain, you know, that helps justify the fact that you're suggesting that they list their house for less than they want to. You're saying this is actually probably better for you in the long run, right? And so I had a conversation with a woman last night on the phone. She wanted to list her house at $635. I told her I thought if it was my house, I would put it up at $575. And then she said, well, what do you think about like $599? And said, I would do it at $575. That's what I would do, you know. And then she was sort of like, okay, yeah. So then she got, I was like, you know, this is what we want to do. You want to price it competitively. You want people to know it's priced competitively. You have one open house, ideally for an hour. You get everybody in, and then you force their hand. Right? They see that there's lots of people there. They know it will sell. You force their hand. They have to put in their best offer versus having it sit on the market. And you're not driving urgency, and people can put in an offer that's not competitive. So you can list it at $635, and it might sit for 3 weeks, and you'll get an offer at $550 because they know it's not. There's no urgency. That's not the right path, right? So
It's easy to show that through the comps too. For a house that finally sold and it was on the market for 200 days.
absolutely,
And they had like 4 price drops.
absolutely, that's absolutely right. So I would encourage you guys to be strong on, you know, firm on price. It's worth it at the end for you and for them. You know, when they say, okay, what about 600? What about 599? It's easy to be like, yeah, we can give it a try, right? Because then they're like happy with that. But it's not worth it at the end of the day because it's still overpriced. You're still gonna have the same bad result. So by just telling them what you think the right thing to do is and explaining why and how we try and generate bidding wars, it's gonna pay off if you can explain that in a persuasive way. And you know, not everybody's gonna go for it, but it is better to get 4 houses priced right on the market than 5 listings where they're all overpriced, right? So
Well, it's still the same amount of work, pretty much.
exactly.
In fact,
Yeah.
they're more work because now you have to have unpleasant conversations.
Right.
Mhm.
And I mean, I've said to prospects, I mean, are you going to be happy with me if I come to you and say it's time to do a price drop? You're not going to be happy with me.
Yeah. Would you rather have the conversation now or
Yeah.
later when it's listed? Now, because it's much easier. Okay, so what else? So we go through pricing. We talk about that. The one open house, forcing the hand, their best offers, getting some competition, using offers, playing offers off one another, right, to get the best possible price for the house in the least amount of time. That's kind of the ballgame, right? So then after that piece, what's next on the outline? Muffin.
Marketing.
No.
Well, Who knows what's next?
Oh, coming soon open house.
Yeah, coming soon. Yeah.
That was really bad, my
Sorry. Yes.
Coming soon, what are we trying to accomplish with the coming soon? Marble,
Make sure, oh, sorry.
Terry,
Make sure it's priced right.
yep, and what else?
I guess to show them the analytics of,
What are the things, what are we trying to accomplish with pricing? What are the three things that we want to, the big things we want to do when we talk about the coming soon? So make sure, again, keeping them on task with pricing is definitely one of them. And then
something that other agents don't do. We spend $12,000 a month.
Well, that's
for
marketing,
utilities.
this is coming soon.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah. So we're continuing to demonstrate expertise and continuing to educate them, right? And continuing to help make sure that they, emphasize the importance of pricing, right? So this is yet another way that what we do when we sell a house to make sure that it's priced right, because pricing, as I told you, is so critical. And you're telling them, like, this is how we do it. This is, as investors, we want to make sure it's priced right. We go to great lengths, including doing this coming soon, to make sure that it is priced right, so we don't have the bad. We're doing everything we can to avoid the bad outcome of having it sit, right? So we talk about the coming soon. We leave it up for five days a week, right? We see how many clicks. We've learned over time how many clicks we should be seeing if it's priced correctly, and we use that as validation or verification of whether or not we're priced correctly before we actually go live, and there's more consequences. And then, I encourage almost, I would encourage anyone to do that, right? It costs nothing. It's easy. I can do it for you. You wouldn't say that, but that's what I do when I ever sell. When I sell my house, it only takes a few days, costs nothing, and it helps me make sure I have enough. It increases my confidence in the price that I think it's worth. Yeah. Then marketing, right? So we're going to talk about marketing next, and then Terry, what are we trying to accomplish with the marketing spiel?
That we do things that, the average agent doesn't do.
Right, that's right. And so we're still demonstrating
Creating
expertise,
expertise,
right? We're
as
still
we do it.
educating them as we do it, and then we're basically telling them, this is something that we do that you're not going to get
Yeah.
somewhere else, but we're not saying it like that,
Right.
We're saying it like, this is what we do still. So we're still very much in the, this is how we sell houses versus any type of pitch.
It helps on the rapport side to continue that too, because we're basically sharing our secrets, but, we're just,
Exactly.
this is to help you
Yes.
out.
Exactly.
Yes.
And that really makes a big impact.
100%.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
Yeah, this is to help you out. This is stuff we know from all the houses we've sold that we're sharing with you.
And
We're
we learned
here,
it the hard
we-
way. We spent a lot of money learning the hard way.
Yeah.
I'm getting a handle on what your situation is, and I'm here, I'm telling you how we do it, giving you some thoughts, and then at the end, obviously, you'll kind of diagnose the situation and
Right, I mean, the thought in your head should be when you're talking about pricing, it's like, we're going to talk to you about the importance of pricing, we're going to talk to you about how we determine the right price on our houses, whether you, whatever you decide to do. So in your head, it's it doesn't matter what you do, whether you end up working with us, although again, we're not trying to push them to do that, or whether they list with another agent, or whether they end up selling to us as an investor or selling to some other investor. So, it doesn't matter what they're gonna do. We're just sharing this information with them. So you should kind of always have that idea in their head. It doesn't I don't care what you do. Whatever you decide.
that makes it easier for you to tell them things, and, to be more candid about things like pricing. You're just telling them what you think the best thing is to do. You're not trying to solicit them necessarily. So you're telling them what we would do, what you think the best thing to do. It's much easier from that vantage point to be frank with them. Say, I think what you're looking for is probably more than what it would sell for on the market. And if I were in your shoes and selling this house, I would put it up at that price. Just makes it more palatable for them, right?
Here's a question. what are some things that can probably be sprinkled during the tour and report section of the meeting to indicate, you know, hey, listen, you know, I don't mind sharing what we do. This is what I would do. You understand? So if we're going through the transition and we go sit down, and then I'm just hitting them with the hammer, hey, this is what I would do, versus sprinkling and giving some indication that, you know, I don't mind just sharing what we do during the report. Is that something that you think would be beneficial?
Did you say sprinkling?
Sprinkling, that's the best word.
Sprinkle sugar.
Oh, I'm not
Soft
sure.
pedal the idea that, you know, I'm sharing my secrets with you.
Yeah, so that's sort of,
Well, because we're saying that we're not sure that we can buy it, that it fits our criteria for the cash purchase, like after the tour.
So it's after the tour, okay, I got what you're saying.
But it's sort of like, but since we're already here and we're talking to you, and maybe it will still work for us for cash, we're not like ruling it out. Since we're here, we'll share with you just because we're here and, you know, we've talked and whatever, and we're chatting, like we'll share from our experience
Okay.
the stuff that we know that might help you, no matter what you decide to do.
Sequentially, it wouldn't make sense to have any indicators because we need to see the whole house before we make that transition statement.
You're just offering value, so you don't need to justify it.
Yeah.
Like, you're just educating and offering value, basically, throughout this whole thing.
Yeah.
You're not trying to convince them to do something. So, you know, you don't need to justify that to someone. You know, they're just like, this person's like sharing a lot, and they know that we're investors, and we want to try to buy the house for cash, and they know, because we told them that it isn't quite, like, doesn't quite fit our cash mold. You know, it may still work, we're not like ruling it out, but it's not quite exactly what we usually look for. And so they're like, well, these guys are out of it. They're not gonna be able to buy it, so, you know, they're just, I guess, you know, they're just being nice or whatever. They're just kind of sharing stuff with me. They're here.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, they told, like, you know, they've said that this house isn't, you know, normally the houses they buy are, you know, a little more distressed or in a different kind of condition, but you're still there asking them questions, just trying to get a full, you know, total feel for what their situation is, right?
Yeah.
So you're like, and normally the houses, you know, what we buy is going to be something that's a little more distressed, but it's not that we wouldn't buy it, but let me just ask you, you know, what are your plans for this, and then then you just start the whole conversation about, well, this is what I would do, it's more advice giving, education.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like, I mean, I don't know if would you agree with this, right? It's like you're basically closing the door like 80%, but you're leaving it ajar, essentially, right? So like on the cash offer, right? That's how I think about it, right? Like you're closing the door 80%, but there's still like that 20%. And the rest of the conversation is basically the reason you're continuing to talk to them and ask questions, like Kevin was saying, is to explore if there is maybe something we like missed or some other angle or something that might still work for us as investors. It's like not a big chance, it's just a little chance, just like a little jar kind of chance. And so that's why you're continuing to have the conversation. And that's why it justifies to them why you're still there talking to them as well. You're still exploring the outside chance that maybe there's some creative way this can work for us as investors. And if not, you know, at least you have good information when you know, if you decide to sell on the market or something, at least you've got good information to make a good decision.
That's 100% right. So like, yeah, it's, you know, maybe 20% chance, and you know, in the back of your mind, you'd say you would be thinking, all right, this is not sort of like the stereotypical house that we would buy, but in certain situations, if somebody really doesn't want to deal with putting it on the market, or has to be moving for a job, or is, you know, has an extenuating circumstance, maybe we would end up buying it at a reduced price. It's just less likely because it's in good condition. That's what you're thinking to yourself. So you're still exploring to make sure that there's no like hidden, you know, motivation or something where they actually just really need to sell the house like in 2 weeks or something. And so that's kind of like the 20% why you're continuing the conversation. You know, that's how you would want to think about it. Right? So it's probably not going to work, but it could. So you're still trying to diagnose motivation, figure out what they want, price, etc.
And why do we not want to close the door 100%? Why don't we just want to tell them, hey, look, it's not going to work for us for cash? Like, why do we not want to tell them that? You know, like at the walkthrough, or when we're kind of transitioning and sitting down and showing them comps and stuff. Like, why do we not just
They
close the
may
door?
shut down, then, you know, that may be
Right.
the only thing they're thinking of,
Right.
and then they're not gonna be open to any other possibilities.
Yeah, exactly. They're going to basically just potentially stop listening to you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, well, I want a cash offer, you can't buy it. Okay, well, now their mind's just spinning about what other options they have.
Exactly. Yeah, that's why you're there. That's how the appointment was set for a cash offer. So you don't want to, you want to make sure that that remains alive, both because it's going to help keep the meeting going, and also because you should always keep the cash offer alive until the end, so until you absolutely know what it is that they're trying to do.
Yep, it's your ACE card.
Yep. Yeah, what our cash offer is our big hook for them, like to kind of keep them interested and engaged, sort of like what our cash offer is.
It's like
I
our
used
only
it to
lever.
get a
It's
second
like-
meeting, because I didn't give it away in that meeting I had in Manassas.
Mhm.
And I was able to get a second meeting saying, now that I've seen the house, it's nothing like the tax record. I gotta go back,
Yep.
crunch some numbers. It worked.
I mean, it's
really well.
like our only leverage,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, it's good, right? Like the square footage is different than what's in the tax record. That's good. There's, I saw some stuff with like the rear wall that I'm not totally sure about. I took some pictures. I'm gonna talk to Lloyd, our construction manager, and then we'll be able to get back to you with exactly what our cash offer is going to be.
Or Phyllis.
All right, so we did the two options, the comps, right, which sort of set their like frame, like here's what renovated houses are going for, and here's all the pictures of the renovated houses. You can see how much nicer those are than your house, right, Mr. Seller, right? We're not saying that, but that's sort of, you're pointing that out, right? And then you are showing the lower end, comps as well, sort of like framing it like yours is just kind of in between these two, like it's kind of the range for your house, right? And then we talk about the pricing, educating about the importance of pricing, why you want to price it on the lower side, not the higher side, and the bidding war, and the one open house. And this is how we do it when we're selling our houses, right? Then the coming soon is sort of, you can think of that as like part of pricing almost. So to make sure that we are exactly right on our price because of how important pricing is, like we just talked about, what we do when we sell our house is actually this thing called a coming soon, and here's how it works, and blah, 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 blah. Again, Mr. Seller, no matter what you decide to do, you're right, like whether you don't decide not to sell it, or whether you decide to sell it with an agent, right, or whether you decide to try to sell it to another investor, whatever you want to do, like here's what you should be thinking about when you're trying to set your price, because this is what we think about when we're setting our prices. And we've been doing this since 2010, and we've sold 194 houses. Coming soon, and then marketing. So along with the pricing, Mr. Seller, like we talked about, the other big thing you need to worry about is, and think about, and again, the other thing that we think about, I should say, right? The other thing besides pricing that we think about is marketing. And what we do is, we spend $12,000 a month, Trulia, Zillow, right, blah, blah, blah. Again, Mr. Seller, no matter what you do, like, this is what we think about and what we know to be important. So at least you have that information when you're going to make
To the close if it's appropriate, right? So, like, if you feel like you're getting buying signals from them, we talked about that last time. If they're starting to ask you questions about whether you can do it, or expressing interest, or saying that giving you indications that they're on board, you outline a game plan like we talked about. So this is how it would work. We'll do this, the pictures, and then we'll do this and this and this and this. What do you think? I can do this for you. Close, right? We talked about kind of game plan is the close, and then you just soft close at the end. So what do you think? You know what? I think it's a good. This makes sense. I can sell this house. Why don't we just do this together?
I think you talk about again when you know
Yes.
know it's appropriate to do a game plan.
Right. So you're going to have, obviously, if somebody's saying, "Hey, well, this sounds like really smart. Like, is this something you could do for me?" That's like somebody's hitting you over the head, right? You're like, okay. But you're going to generally get something more subtle than that, like, so you actually could do this too for me, or something like that. Or if they're saying, okay, well, I really need to kind of get this process started. I really am just ready to get it started. And, anything like that, any kind of buying signals like that. Those are that people are saying are telling you that they want to get it started, not necessarily with you, but they're like, I really just want to get the ball rolling here. I need to do this. Like, I just got to bite the bullet, move forward. That's a very good buying signal. And if they're asking you more questions, like, so can you do this, or would you be able to help me with that? They're basically envisioning working with you. And if they're saying anything along the lines of, if they're just asking follow-up questions about like different things that you can do, not necessarily, can you do this for me, but like, do you also offer this, or how would you handle this situation? If they're asking you follow-up questions, that's a pretty good sign too. So we talked about those kind of 4 things last time, that we're getting some indication that they have an interest in moving forward, that they're ready, and that they like you. And everybody should know if they like you, right? If you've been there for 2.5 hours and you have good rapport, everybody should know that, right? So obviously that's important too. Do you want to go around and?
Yeah, well, so when you're talking about the game plan, are you still in the perspective of, if we owned this house and we were selling it, this is what we would do? Or at that point, are you transitioning to, if I were to sell this house for you, here's what we would do?
So for that, it's going to be, if I don't know where they are, I'm not going to go through the game plan. Because the game plan is, I'm never going to do it unless I do it from the perspective of, this is how it would work.
We would do it for you?
Yeah.
Okay, and then so what percentage of the time would you guess that you do, it's appropriate to do the game plan?
I would say any meeting that closes, maybe a third of the meeting, any meeting that's going to close for a listing, I would have done it.
Uh-huh.
So, like, if I'm not sure, then I'll kind of like try and bait them a little bit. So, like, what are you thinking, right? Sort of trial close, get a little like try and get more information out of them to see if you can gauge whether they're ready for that. But I'm not going to do the game plan unless I believe that they're going to sign up, because otherwise it's like the offer, you've played that card, you can only play it once.
And so that's, you said what, like a third of the time?
Yeah, about a third of the time.
Okay. And when you don't do the game plan, can you remind them what you do? Say that you said, you're trying to just sort of like ask more questions about sort of like, I guess what kind of things would you be asking or trying to accomplish if they're in the 2/3 that aren't ready for the game plan?
At that point, I haven't switched over. If I haven't done the game plan, then I haven't switched over to, I can do this for you. I'm still
We haven't switched over to selling mode,
right.
Like we want something from you mode. Like they still don't think we want anything from you at this point. Once you switch over to, here's what we can do for you if we sell this house for you, like,
right.
Like that's their angle. I see why they're still excited. Like, that we sort of have the reason because we're still sort of exploring the possibility of the cash offer. We're not sort of ruling it out. Maybe there's an angle there for it. But they're like, oh, okay. Now I see why he was like telling me all this stuff. He wants to list the house. It's another agent, right? And then you lose all your sort of the value and the power of like the positioning.
And so if you're not gonna ready to do, if you determine this too early, you can't tell if they're ready, right? Then you're still in that, this is how we do. So you can be kind of more straightforward with them. Hey, so what do you think you're gonna end up doing? Like, if you talk to another agent, or do you think you'll end up listing it with an agent? You can ask a question like that where ordinarily you wouldn't be able to, right? So, like, if you had to, when do you actually think you're going to put it on the market? What do you think you'll end up actually selling the house? What have you done to actually prepare to move? Any number of questions where you can just ask them very straightforward and try and gauge where they are. You want to keep trying to gauge, and then if you determine that they're not, they're still like 8 months away from like doing anything, they're not ready, then you're not going to do the game plan, right? You're going to take a step back. You're going to keep them in your pipeline and try and work it later. If you can't figure out if they're like, oh, I'm going to interview, I'm going to talk to a couple. I still need to talk to my brother and a few other agents. I'm just not sure what I'm going to do yet. You think they're ready to sell, but they're still kind of surveying their options, which is very common, right? Then you're going to try and get a second appointment with them. You're not going to do the game plan. Never, because you've played your card. You have nothing else to offer.
You're going to try to get the second appointment by the whole, we'll take some pictures, sort of the condition. We're going to talk to Lloyd about it, do a little more research on the comps, come back to you with exactly what our cash offer will be.
Yep.
Is that the hook for the second appointment?
That's a good way to do it. You can do it that way, and that's how I would do it most of the time. You can also say, hey, I want want to see if they had any like specific questions, they're thinking about doing any kind of repairs, you could say, oh, I'll talk to, you know,
Well,
Lloyd
if there's a
about that.
co-owner too,
A what?
a co-owner.
Sure, if there's a
That's
co-owner.
why I
but-
set the second appointment, so I could get in front of both of them.
But I would do I mean, that's a good one too, but I would do the cash offer one is sort of the default because that's what got you in the door the first time, and there's no sort of, it's very believable and understandable. It's like, you know, I took pictures, this house is, you know, there's some things going on here that I'm not 100% sure about that I would want to get verification from Phyllis on, and before I can give you a firm offer. And so let me do that. I'll come back. Let me set another meeting. I can come back and I can kind of walk you through everything. Cool? All right.
So basically, you know, you think of the cash offer basically as like a carrot that we're dangling in front of them, like the whole time pretty much, right? Like to get the appointment, we dangle the carrot in front of them. We can't tell, you know, geez, comps are all over the place. We get to see the house first to let you know what the offer will be. Then we're there, it's like, oh wait, like not quite, right? Like if they're not ready again at the end, it's like, well, actually, still not. We still can't give it to you. We got to talk to Lloyd, and you know, there's some issues with the house. You know, we got to check and look at the comps more closely. So you know, let's set up one more appointment. We'll have the research, and we'll come and tell you exactly what the offer's going to be. So that's like that's your main, like that's your only power basically, is this like, the curiosity carrot of what our cash offer is going to be. And so through the whole appointment, at the end of the appointment to get a second appointment, we're still dangling that carrot in front of them to keep the conversation going. If they're not ready to clearly list it with us, like they're not giving us those buying signals that Kevin talked about, but they're like, oh wow, so like, you know, so if you were selling this house, like how would you do like the staging of it? Oh, if you were selling this house, like what would you, how long would you do the coming soon for? Right, those are sort of the buying signals, indicators of interest where they might be ready for the game plan. If not, we got to talk to our people and they know what the cash offer will be.
What happens if I sign up with you and the house doesn't sell after 2 months? How much do I owe you? It's a good buying. That's a good buying signal. That's a very common one. Well, like you can have a couple standard ones. Like I need to, if there's some water damage here, that concerns me. I've taken pictures of it. I need to show that to Lloyd. Or you say, I'm not sure. Like what I think what we would potentially do is take out a couple walls here. I'm not sure about if that would work or not. Any type of work. I mean, anything.
Make
Like
stuff.
these baseboards are extremely dusty. I need to talk to Lloyd.
See what the cost be to dedust
There's
the baseboards.
a lot of dust here, right?
So and before the game plan, I mean, so would you say that's like kind of level with me basically before the game plan, right? So it's like so we talked about all this shit. So what are you gonna do?
Almost out of curiosity.
Right. Like so, you know, like I said, it doesn't look like it's quite gonna fit for us for the cash offer. So geez, so now what? What are you gonna do? I mean, so like really, are you like kind of ready to sell now, really, or are you gonna be like waiting a while before you sell? Kind of like level with me, like having sort of a heart to heart almost,
Right.
sort of.
Right.
At the end, basically, right? Because again, we don't have any commercial interest as far as they're concerned. They know that the door's 80% closed. We probably can't buy it for cash. We had this whole conversation. We spent a lot of time with them. They like us. So geez, what are you gonna do now, Mr. Seller?
Yeah. Well, tell me what you're gonna do. Maybe I can give you a little bit more advice. Also, you can just kind of go negative too, right? Why don't you just keep it and rent it?
Yeah.
You know, if they're, you know, so that's your sort of like free pass, right? To try and get as much out of them as you can on their motivation.
And that gives you the information you need, right, to decide whether or not to do the game plan.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, so we'll add that into this, you know, kind of like the level with me sort of conversation and some questions, you know, that you would ask them.
Because you need that leverage. I mean, as I'm sure everybody knows, like a lot of these people are not going to be straight with you, and so it can be hard, especially if they feel like you're trying to pitch. It can be very hard to diagnose what their motivation is. They may tell you that they're going to do one thing and do something totally different. It's very hard when they feel pressured. So you need that sort of leverage to get them to kind of tell you what it is that they want and need, so you can ultimately propose to them a solution that matches what they want and need.
Cool. So can you make a note maybe to add the like a level with me section before the game plan?
Yep.
Does everyone have the link to this script thing that we're going over? Okay, so I guess like, I guess everyone should just have their phones or something, I guess, so that way we can go through it. And when we're doing these training sessions, everyone should just have it up on their phones or something. Or it could bring their computer in or something like that.
Kevin, can you send me the link? Or you have it, John, we'll shoot it over.
Yeah, we'll send it to everybody. So why don't we, so let's start having some people just go over the 1,000-foot view, just like me and Kevin did, right? So we knock on the door, we say hi to them, we walk the house with them, we're trying to figure out what their motivation is, where they're gonna go, what they're gonna do, then we sit down and we say, hey, look, there's 2 options typically if we want to sell a house, right? And then we do this, then we do that. Like, what's the 5-minute, like, here's the progression of the meeting. So somebody, let's have some people try to do that. And then we'll do this again, like, next week. So make sure you have reviewed the script and you have it with you. So who wants to give it a try first?
Tina, I think wants to.
Tina's so trying to.
Tina
pull the
does
link.
not want to. It turns out.
Yeah, I
Okay,
just pulled
thanks,
up
Sarah.
the link, I'm sorry.
I'll do it.
All right, good.
Okay.
So just like the 5-minute kind of 1,000-foot
5
view.
minute, 1,000-foot view. Yeah, you show up, knock on the door, enter, start building rapport right away. Get to the point to where I have started doing this, and that is.
What
can
is
I
the
set-
first thing you're gonna do? What are you doing? You go inside, what are you doing? Walk through, right?
Well, the walkthrough,
Yeah,
yeah,
keep
but
going. Yeah,
before
that's what we're talking about.
before that, what I've started doing, which I've found effective, is can I put my stuff down on the kitchen table? Because that leads you back to the kitchen table.
That's a good
Okay.
little
So-
technique.
So, or if they don't have a kitchen table, the most comfortable looking place in the house
Yeah.
for a conversation. Okay, so then doing the walkthrough, building rapport at the same time, using it as an opportunity to share expertise, and then at the end of the walkthrough, is there a place we can, if you haven't already designated that, and then talk about, just a few things, ask a few questions, and then go into, there's the 2 options.
Good.
And then go into a little bit of detail, explain the investor option versus the going through an agent option and what that entails, pros and cons to both. And then asking some more questions, and then getting to talking about pricing and the importance of that. Continuing to educate and show expertise, ask more questions, continue to build rapport. Talk about the best strategy we found for pricing the house. Getting feedback. Talking about the different aspects of the coming soon specifically. And then educating, then going over marketing, and then gauging at the end after you've continued to ask more questions, continue to build more rapport, continue to share more expertise. Where, doesn't look like, I'm not ruling it out, but not typical, your house isn't typical, it's too nice for the house that we usually buy. What are you gonna do? And then get their feedback. And if it looks like they've asked the right questions, basically, can you just do this for me? If they've given you the right buying signals, then do the game plan. And then if you can get an on-the-spot close, get it. But if not, get a second appointment or engage when that time frame should be.
That's good. That's good. There's one thing that you forgot.
What?
Remember? Well, so what do you do with your iPad?
Oh yeah, the comps.
Yeah,
the
exactly.
comps
That's the
app.
only thing, yeah.
Oh, okay, yes, the comps.
But everything else, yeah. That's good.
I did that in the. I actually followed this process to the letter, and that's why it was a really good appointment.
Good.
So I had the comps. I did that ahead of time. In fact, he said, "Look, aside from you're sitting across from me, I'm sitting across from you. Sit side by side, like you're my friend. What would you do for me?" And just having that heart to heart.
Transitioning from us doing most of the talking to like you guys have to do it. We're going to be calling people and you just have to, and then yeah. So
one thing I was meaning to mention is, and getting it on the spot is so important. I know Victoria, I know Tara, with me, Mark, I'm sure there's been instances where you've not gotten it on the spot, but you were like, I'm gonna get this one, I just have to go back and I'm gonna send them the paperwork, but it's good, and then it doesn't happen. That is a very real thing. It becomes, even if you think it's super solid, if you don't get it on the spot, it's almost like a toss-up, I think. So getting it on the spot is like crucial, because otherwise it's going to be, people think about it, or they talk to somebody else, or they, things change.
Okay, I can tell you one thing that'll really help me as an exercise we could do in training. Just throwing it out there. It'd be nice if you guys came up with an example. This is your seller. This is their house. How are you going to prepare for this? What's your cash offer going to be? How are you going to recommend pricing? Because you have to be able to do those things on the spot. And I don't think I'm quite there yet.
What do you mean?
As far as
Just
like
talking about
giving them a
the
range,
pre-meeting
like
prep, essentially, talking about pre-meeting prep, looking at comps, determining what the cash offer value and the retail
right,
value is.
knowing with confidence going in, this is how I would price that house. Well, I mean, if the house looks a little bit different when you get there, you have to be able to adjust.
Yeah, we can talk about. I mean, that's that's like the comp training thing essentially that like I have in Drive. If you so that's worth doing, I think. But have you looked at that as well?
Yeah,
the
of
comp
course,
training? Okay.
of course. But
Because
it'd be
that's how we would do it.
interesting
We're
to
like,
see if we all come up with the same thing.
yeah, I think that'd be an interesting exercise. Yeah, we can add that to our list. And then let's have someone else before we end though do the same thing Tara did. That's a good view. It was a good job.
Yep. Alright, so you walk up, knock on the door, introduce yourself, let them know that you're going to be doing a walkthrough, then you can sit down and discuss all the options. Through the walkthrough, you're going to be building rapport, demonstrating expertise, and assessing the motivation. Sit down, bring out your iPad or bring out the paper comps, kind of give them an idea, just make sure that what they want for the property is realistic.
Wait, you forgot something?
So the two options.
Right.
Through an investor.
So anytime anyone wants to sell a house, Mr. Seller, there's typically two ways it can go. And both ways have some shit that's good and some shit that's not good.
Right.
Okay.
So then explain the two ways, how there's as is on the open market, as is with an investor. Then you bring out the comps, whether it's the iPad or just print it out from the MRIS. And I like to go through the pictures with them, basically just kind of let them go through themselves and then be like, oh yeah, like this floor's been refinished, they've got new stainless steel appliances, fresh paint, all of this, whatnot. So then that's the demonstrating expertise, and then just making sure they have a realistic view of the price they should get. Then you can go into the coming soon, kind of how we do things, letting them know that it's not a listing, it's a baby step towards getting it on the MRIS.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the ways that we make sure that we get the most out of our properties as possible. Also sprinkling in how $1,000 for one deal for us is a whole lot more than it is for the typical agent. It's something like under $100 for a typical agent. Then you go into marketing, about how we have like the premier spots. We spend over $12,000 a month on marketing, and by us having the premier spots, anything that we list is going to be shown at the top of the lists for any criteria people are looking for. And then you go into the transition from the buyer to the listing. Typically, like how I do it is I like to just be like, I mean, so from what you've told me, it sounds like you guys are trying to get the most as possible for your property, right? And they're like, yeah, definitely. Then kind of talk like, why are they talking to an investor? Because investors have to make it work for their numbers. Then I'll kind of go through as to why investors will lowball. I mean, they have to basically have a safety net in case there's something that goes majorly wrong later on in construction, like foundational issues, waterproofing the basement, stuff like that, that would end up costing over $20,000. And I mean, that's eating up a lot of the profit right there. And then if you get the signals that you feel like you should present the game plan, what I do is I kind of like to set future dates. I mean, like, just be like, okay, so you want to get this done as quickly as possible. I could get my photographer out here before the end of the week. We could get pictures done, get the listing up before the weekend. If you guys aren't comfortable with getting the listing up, we could start out with the coming soon, do it for a few days just to see how many views we get since we've been analyzing it. We know you want about 100 clicks per day, multiple saves per day, and then you know you're priced right or on the lower end. And then you go into the soft close, basically just hoping that they basically pitch it to you that they want you to take the reins and do it for them.
Okay. So that was pretty good. Make sure you don't forget the two options thing. After the
Right.
walkthrough, you sit down, right? And again, this is the change from what we were doing initially, right? When you first started doing this, so it is a bit of a change. But you want to take a little more time to do the general education of them and establishing our expertise from our experience owning our own houses, right? So make sure you don't forget the two options, right? Then you talk about the comps, which is good. What did he forget after that? Did you pick it up? What section was missed? Pricing. So, after the comps, that's when we talk about just the whole riff about how important pricing is and how we do the one open house, right? And then we generate the bidding awards. You want to have it be a little bit on the low end. You don't want to price it aggressively because of this, and that reason, blah, 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 right? That whole education, demonstrating expertise, again, so you need to make sure you're adding that into what you're already doing. I think a lot of the stuff you're doing is right, but I think you need to make sure you're not forgetting and you have memorized this shit, right? Like the educational aspect of it. So yeah, and then the coming soon, right? So that's good, marketing, and then the game plan. So yeah, it's just the pricing thing.
That is good. The one thing I would be careful on there, which is again when you're saying, don't try and push them too much towards the listing, right? Like you're trying to get the most out of your property, right? Like you don't need to ask them. You don't need to say, kind of push them in that direction and be like, investors, the reason they lowball, because we would never want to say that our offer is low, because our offer is very reasonable for an investor, right? They're getting a lot of conveniences, and it's where it has to be. It's going to be less than market value, but for a reason, right? So, you can say it sounds like you want to just try and keep it as open-ended as possible. Keep exploring from a neutral perspective what their agenda is. Like, do they want absolutely positively all the money or not? You can explore that, but just be careful in your own mind not to foreclose the cash offer, prematurely.
Right, because if you switch too early into the pitch mode, here's what we can do for you, and here's the timeline, and here's how we can do the coming soon to make sure you get the right price, Mr. Seller. Switch too early into that, then you're going to lose a lot of deals that way, because the person doesn't quite have their mind made up, and then you switch into salesperson mode, and now you're just in the every other agent contacting them bucket. It's a lot harder to close them from that once you're in that bucket. So you want to be more patient and take more time at the end when you're having the level with me kind of conversation with them, to make sure that they are in a position where they are sort of ready to do something before you then say, well, okay, here's what we can do for you. So then next time, let's have everyone else who didn't go at least do the 1,000-foot view. So Tina and Terry and Andrew and Victoria. Let's have you guys, love you guys, hi. Love you guys do the 1,000-foot view, going through all the different elements you want to hit on, sort of the high level on the meeting, how to do it. Love you guys do that next week. And then, we'll see what else we want to do, but we'll at least do that at the start. Okay, thanks.
Great.
All right.